All right, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's Rabbit Smirking Gun Reviews, and we're back with part 2 of my discussion review of The Haunting of Hill House. This is part 2 of that. The first one we talked a lot about the characters and the actors, and how just some of my personal stuff about ghost stories and all that. And that was pretty non-spoilery. But we're going to get into spoilers here. Just warning, I'm going to still talk a little bit non-spoilery, but just be prepared for spoilers in this one. If you have not seen this, I do not recommend watching this whole video because I don't think I'm going to be able to stop myself from talking about spoilers as I get into it organically. So let's just talk about the general before we get into spoilers, because I've talked a lot about the acting and everything else, but the show in general as a whole. So you've got this family called the Cranes, and they are flipping houses. She's good with like blueprints. He's the laborer, the father. So you got Hugh and, gosh, I can't remember her name. That's really bad. Carla Gugino's mother's character. They've got 5 kids. Sorry. And they're in this place called Hill House to flip it and make a bunch of money. Now, everything in you automatically goes, why are people in these movies always going to dark, crazy-ass, big-ass places that, they're out in the middle of nowhere? But it's the trope, it's a thing, it's one of those things you just kind of have to get over. I was talking to a friend who was describing a situation that she had happened to her, where she saw something on a camera, and I said, and it was like they were staying at this rented house, and they said that when they took the picture, they saw something in the film that was standing there, that you couldn't see without the film. And I said, well, then you guys left, right? I mean, there's something there. If you saw something in the house, why did you stay? And they were like, well, because we didn't have a choice. And I was like, there's always a choice. You chose to stay in a place that you knew was probably wrong. So I guess it happens, in real life. I, for one, like when I talked about in the other video, I don't want to know. Not really. It makes me think of Mulder. Again, here goes my X-Files references. When Mulder talks about, what would he do if he actually saw an alien? Like, does he really want to know, or does he just think he wants to know? What would you do if he actually had that knowledge? How much of your life would be messed up and changed because of it? And so I don't really want to know. Not really. So like if I were to find out that this house that I'm living in definitively to me was haunted, I'd be out like trout, man. Ain't no sticking around. All right, I will go live under a bridge somewhere, okay? Well, this is one of those trips you just gotta, getting back to, you just gotta get over it. It's just part of the story. And like you can't have a haunted house story without a haunted house. And you can't have like the scary thing without your family that's put upon. I mean, it's not the first time. The Conjuring has done it twice. And, especially with the first one, with the family that's living in the house that they're fixing up and everything, and things go wrong and they don't leave. Eventually they try. But in this, it's just much more interesting because nobody wants to you got little kids and they see things and you just go, it's their imaginations, and you don't want to believe it. And then you got people who just think it's their, their own imagination, and they don't want to believe what they're seeing and everything like that. But then there's also parts where you start to go, I think you saw something, yet you are ignoring it. But you're ignoring it because you're just trying to, these are old houses, blah, blah, blah. And as you find out through gradually, one of the great parts about this show is the way they're telling the story. You've got the present story, you've got what happened at the house when they were kids, and then you have these flashbacks that are in the middle of that that deal with everything after they were kids but before the present time. And they do that really, really well. Another thing that this show does well is what I've talked about in the other episode, was the building up of these characters into full-fledged people that you give a crap about. And each person gets their moment to help you get defined, to define them as people that you care about. And told in this non-linear way also, showing how something that's happening now or happening in the past is affecting them right now. And they're like correlations to the two. And then also correlations to stuff that happened in the middle. And it all kind of feels like this loop. That it's all connected, and not just connected, but that their lives are in this kind of like trap. This like unending cycle that never stopped, even though they left the house. One of the great things, I'm not going to go episode to episode, but one of the greatest episodes that they did in this was called Two Storms. This probably is my favorite episode because it should just be this, in general storytelling and stuff, it takes place at a visitation at a funeral. The thing that you do before the actual funeral, when you go to see the body. And it's just these people in the funeral home, the family, all having these conversations. And it feels like a play. And people are coming and going out of rooms and having these like very, like it's stage play type, like way it feels. But it's also probably in a lot of ways the scariest episode because of the way that the camera's always moving around, the way your characters get separated when they decide to, like somebody pisses somebody off and they decide to do this, and how they will leave a room and they'll go right around a corner seamlessly into like the past or into the old house. And it's done so well and so seamlessly and scary. And it's like they don't even realize, it's like they think that they've just kind of had a brain fart for a second, where they'll see something just awful and they'll come to kind of like they thought that they just kind of drifted off and they were sleeping for a second. It's really scary. And the fact that, it takes them like the whole episode for them to feel connected in the terror that's happening around them, when it finally builds and they're all in the same place when bad things start to happen. Well, I mean, bad things are already happening, but then it happens to all of them at once, and they can't really deny what's happening, but they try anyway. And it's just pulled off so flawlessly. If I had to pick an episode that they should nominate for like writing or just general episode, if they want to talk about like which episode do we want to sell as the contender for like best for the Emmys and stuff, Two Storms is definitely it. I love how they talk about that there's no storm. Why is there a storm happening? It's not even like like the power goes out and it's like so. Again, you have to be able to slightly turn your brain off on a couple of things just because things are only happening to them. And like it is, like they are trapped in this this thing they can't escape even when they left. The things that happen to these kids, like you've got the bent neck lady. Poor little Nell, this little girl, has been seeing this lady at the foot of her bed, hovering over her with this crooked neck. And I guess this is going to be spoilers. So little Nell has been seeing this person, and it has carried with her whole life. And she keeps seeing it like it's back. It's been gone for a while. She's been married. Her husband dies under mysterious circumstances, and she sees this person again. She always freezes up. It is so scary. And when you find out that this bent neck lady that she's been seeing her whole life, and it's been torturing her so much that she finally goes back to the house because she can't take it anymore. And she's going back there basically to, I think, to die. I don't think she really... she's going there to try to face something, but I mean, initially I think she's there to die. Because again, like if you've watched this now and you're ready for spoilers and all that, their mother died in the house. And they do some really clever story work where you kind of know what happens, but you kind of don't know what happened to their mother. But you know that she died in the house. And when she goes back in there, she kind of realizes that she doesn't want to die. But the house has other plans. And the way they describe this house is like it's feeding on them. Like the house is a thing, and it's got body parts. And part of it is like a stomach and a heart and the bones and everything. And she's gone back, like it hasn't had anything to feed on. And now that she's back, it's not going to like be denied a meal. And it messes with her mind enough to think that she's putting on her mother's necklace when really she's putting a noose around her neck. And she is pushed by and she falls and she hangs herself. And it turns out that the bent neck lady she's been seeing her whole life was her. When she hangs herself, it bends her neck and it drops her through time to see that it was her. And it goes all the way back to the first time she sees her as a child. That is so sad and terrifying and a little bit stupid because how would the house know your future if it wasn't already preordained? But it is just one of those things you kind of have to accept, and it is pretty fucking scary that the way that they pull it off. And so Nell, the youngest, adorable, whatever, she has died. And that's pretty much kind of what brings the family together in this show is her funeral. And how these broken people all are forced to come together. Now Steve's, he's been profiting off of kind of lying about what happened, writing haunted house books. And, the rest of the family considers like taking, don't take his money because it's blood money. You've got Shirley, who's still really rigid. She runs the coroner. The episode where she does called open casket, where she makes them let her do her own sister's embalming, was fucking rough. It shows, like, first off, just seeing like the embalming process and like the ripping open of the rib cage and the guts all inside and everything is bad enough and hard enough to watch. But like knowing that she's doing it to her own sister and being so detached about it, like it's just, she's talking on the phone. She's like, I'm just in my sister's chest cavity right now. Like, do we have to have this conversation now? Like, she's so good at that. That actress, oh my goodness. But it was so tough. And it shows how like detached that she is. And by the end of it, when she turns around and sees her mother in the bed next to her sister, it's just really, really creepy and scary. Luke, The youngest son, he's been having problems with heroin. He can't stay clean. He steals from his family. He has constantly been borrowing money. He can't, he's in rehab, he's out of rehab, all this stuff. He's that part of the family. Him and the little girl Nell, they were twins, and so they're still close, trying to be close, and she's got this, the twin connection thing. And that's just really hard too, because, they both know when one of them's in trouble and stuff. I love the interconnectedness of their nightmares and stuff when they all kind of know when something's gone wrong. Touch. So Luke finds this, gets this 90-day chip, and it all culminates into he's met this girl, but she kind of leaves too, and he gets to the funeral and he's been clean, but now they don't really want to hear about it. They don't want to make it about him. It's about Nell. It's about who they lost. Their father eventually shows up. It's all this. It's one of the most awkward family reunions ever, considering their background of what they've been through. And I guess what I really need to do, to kind of move this along a little faster, they all end up, after the funeral, the actual funeral, where Luke, at the grave, sees his mother in the grave trying to pull him in. And he kind of gets it in his head that that's it. I have to stop this. And he gets he disappears. And you think what is happening is that he's relapsing, that he's stolen this car and a credit card to get more drugs. But what he's doing is he's getting gasoline to burn the house down once and for all. And they all end up heading to the house in different situations. And so they get there, and they all have these different kinds of situations. Now, this is the part where we need to talk about the Red Room. So the Red Room is this place in the house that nobody can ever get into. Now, that's another thing where you're just why don't you just fucking knock the door down? Because honestly, you're just fixing up the house, and there's lots of problems in this house, including dead bodies behind walls and things like that. So it's not like if you knock down a door it would matter. So again, you kind of have to turn your brain off to it, but it's okay. Everything else is so good, you kind of can ignore these little tiny nitpicks. And what is so great about the Red Room is that it's everything. There's all these situations that are finally explained by this Red Room. When they were kids, Theodora had a workout room. Luke had a treehouse. Steve had a game room. Their mom had a reading relaxation room. Nell had a tea party room. Everybody had this place. But when people talk about it, when they finally talk about it in present time, you realize that none of those rooms ever existed. They were all part of the Red Room, which is kind of this part of the house that you can't access unless the house wants you to access it. And it's kind of it works almost in a whole other dimension. It's not a part of the blueprints and stuff, I think. And so each one has been this one room has been feeding on them there. It's the stomach. And that's why they'll go in there and they won't remember, they'll be adamant, but they really won't remember how, where, why things are. And so when they get back to the house, when first you see Luke get to the house and he tries to burn the place down and it doesn't work, the gas just disappears and he sees his mother and Poppy, this crazy fucking ghost, comes up behind him and takes him, and you don't know what happens to him. Then you get Steve and his dad, they show up, and they try to get into the Red Room, but they can't. But when the dad, when Hugh turns around, the door opens and there's Luke there. And Steve goes in, and this is where you start to see like this thing where it's messing with them. It's showing them the life. Like Steve thinks he's escaped, but he doesn't know how he got there. And the creepiness of each time, like they're saved at the last second by Nell returning and waking them up before this thing can kill them or drive them crazy. And it's how they all save each other in this red room, by Nell waking them up. And she's been able to fight this force, whatever, this spirit in there, to save her siblings. Even Luke, who almost dies from rat poisoning, he's actually dies for a second and is able to come back by listening to his little version of his sister to wake up. And so they all eventually, Nell helps them get out of the house. And in the meantime, Hugh and his wife, his dead wife, are having a conversation. She saves him from Poppy, and she's adamant about keeping the kids. And he tells him that you have to, this part of being a parent, man, is letting them go out in the world and letting them find pain and live their life. And being here, it's not, you may keep them from bad things happening, but nothing good will ever happen to our kids if they're here. And how she has to, let them go, and how he stays behind to let the kids go. And I love the episode. So the kids, everybody gets out, but you get this really tearful thing with like Hugh has Steve hang back, and you see the red room open up, and it's his wife and Nell there, and he's gonna go be with them. And he tells him, make sure to look out for each other and all this stuff. And it's really, really, really sad and emotional. And you get this nice epilogue where you see that where their lives are. And it just really made me, the fact the way that this ends and ties itself up, and it talks, it's really all these scares and everything else. It's all about family and forgiving each other, and forgiveness in general. And knowing that this is who you have, your family is who you have in life, and it's important to love each other and to take care of each other, no matter if you've lived your life in had a bad trauma in a haunted house or whatever. And that's what I really take away from this, is that it's about family and that. And it really choked me up. It's choking me up a little bit right now, because it's such a great message for to be able to scare you this much, and to make you feel though so much too, and care about these people. And it makes you think about, it makes me think about my own family, and trying to be better, to be a better brother, be a better son. And if a show can make you think those things, then it's done a really good job, whether it was its intention or not. And that's about it. I wish I could go on to part 3 and just keep talking. But I don't want to spoil everything in case you've listened to this and you haven't seen all of it and everything, and I've told you the end. But the journey, I maybe should have done each episode review. I don't know. But go see it if you haven't watched it. If you have watched it, you know what I'm talking about. So if you liked this video, please hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe. One of the things that I was thinking about saying in this was said for me by, I think it was Steve. And I was going to say it, and then the show said it for me. And it's about, be good to each other. Take care of each other. Be kind. And that's what I'll leave you with. Because that's what this, in the end, it's what it's talking about. And, yeah. So, I want to thank anybody that chooses to watch this. I see that I looked at reviews already, and there's like a whole bunch of people who have already watched reviews. There's sites that have thousands of reviews, and so I know I'm kind of late to the party. But when you have a full-time job, it's not easy to fit these in. But anyway, I want to thank anybody that does watch this. I hope you like it as much as I do. Share it with your friends. Share this show with your friends and tell them to watch it even if they're scared of scary stuff. It's important. It's a good show. And I plan on watching it again really soon. So anyway, this is Robert Smirking Gun Reviews saying thanks for all the support, and we will see you on the next video. Bye.